Hey, step away from that door, now. What are you doing?
Unlocking my office. I forgot my key card inside, suite 1204.
Yeah? Prove it. Show me ID.
My ID's on my desk. My name is on the door. You're treating a key like a crime.
Turn around. Hands behind your back.
I'm a criminal defense attorney. You're about to handcuff the wrong...
Officer Bradley Miller had been with the Chicago Police Department for 4 years, but his tenure was marked by a troubling pattern that his supervisors had repeatedly swept under the rug. I later learned he had generated 13 complaints in just 40 months, all involving stops where he'd assumed criminality based on appearance rather than evidence. One Thursday evening in downtown Chicago, Miller made a decision that would cost the city $3,200,000 and permanently end his law enforcement career. I am Marcus Thorne, a 38-year-old criminal defense attorney, and that night I was simply attempting to unlock the door to my own law office suite 1204 on the 12th floor of a high-rise in the Loop after realizing I'd forgotten my keycard inside. No crime, no break-in, no complaint, just a lawyer working late doing exactly what thousands of professionals do every night in office buildings across America. But Officer Miller saw something else entirely. He saw a black man in a suit standing at an office door after hours, and his bias convinced him that something criminal was happening. That false assumption triggered an unlawful detention, a wrongful arrest, and consequences that would expose an entire department's failure to address racial profiling. Before I continue telling you what happened to me, where are you watching from? If this is your first time here, please hit that subscribe button. Stories like mine need to be shared, and your support helps us bring more truth to light. Downtown Chicago, Illinois. The Loop, where massive financial institutions share the skyline with historic law firms and tech hubs. It's a canyon of steel and glass, reflecting the city lights off the river. It's the kind of area where professionals grind until midnight chasing deadlines, where security guards know the regulars by name, and where nobody thinks twice about someone entering an office at 10 o'clock at night. It was 10:41 p.m. on a Thursday evening in August. The summer humidity hung in the air outside, but inside, the AC was crisp. The building's hallways were quiet, but not empty. The fluorescent lights hummed softly overhead. The elevator dinged occasionally as other late workers came and went. Normal, safe, ordinary. I had been a public defender for 12 years before going private. 12 years representing clients who couldn't afford private counsel. 12 years fighting for people the system had already decided were guilty. 12 years in Cook County courtrooms negotiating plea deals, preparing for trials, and reviewing evidence until my vision blurred. My colleagues called me tenacious. My clients called me their last hope. Judges respected my preparation. Prosecutors knew I didn't fold. I'd graduated from the University of Chicago Law School near the top of my class. I'd clerked for a circuit court judge. I could have taken a corporate position, making triple my salary. But that wasn't why I'd gone to law school. I'd watched my own father get railroaded through the system when I was 17. An overworked public defender, a coerced confession, and 10 years for a robbery he was miles away from. That experience shaped my entire existence. So I chose public service. I chose to represent the people who looked like me, who needed me most, and I'd opened my own practice 3 years earlier, handling criminal defense work on a sliding scale. My office was Suite 1204 in a classic building on LaSalle Street. It was a modest space, one room, a heavy oak desk, 2 client chairs, and filing cabinets bursting with case files. My law degree hung on the wall next to my bar admission certificate. It wasn't a penthouse, but it was mine. That evening, I'd been working on a motion to suppress evidence for a client whose Fourth Amendment rights had been trampled during a pretextual traffic stop. The irony of that would hit me hard later. I'd worked until my eyes couldn't focus anymore. Just after 10:30 p.m., I packed my laptop into my leather briefcase, grabbed my suit jacket, and headed for the elevator. I was wearing navy blue dress slacks, a white crisp shirt with the sleeves rolled up, and polished Oxfords. My briefcase hung heavy in my hand. I looked exactly like what I was a professional finishing a long day. I'd gotten to the elevator, pressed the button, waited, and then realized my building access card was still sitting on my desk next to my cold coffee. I needed it to get into the parking garage. Without it, I'd be stranded. So I turned around and walked back down the hallway to Suite 1204. I pulled out my keyring, selected the office key, and inserted it into the lock, completely normal, completely legal, completely innocent. But Officer Bradley Miller didn't see it that way. Officer Miller had been assigned to downtown patrol that evening. His shift had started at 10 p.m. He was supposed to be monitoring the streets, checking on business closures, responding to disturbances. But Miller had a habit of wandering into office buildings. He'd cruise through garages, walk hallways, check door handles. In his mind, he was being proactive, a wolf hunter or catching burglars before they could strike. His supervisors had never told him to stop. In fact, they'd praised his hustle. Miller had made 8 arrests for trespassing in his 4 years. Never mind that 5 of those arrests had been dismissed because the people he detained were actually janitors or IT staff working late. Never mind that the other 3 had resulted in excessive force complaints. The department counted them as stats. Proactive policing. That evening, Miller had entered my building on LaSalle without any call for service. No alarm. No 911 call, no reason. He just walked in through the unlocked lobby and took the elevator to the 12th floor. He stepped out into the hallway and immediately saw me, Marcus Thorne, standing at the door to Suite 1204, key in hand, unlocking my own office. And in that moment, Officer Miller's bias took over. He saw a black man in a suit at an office door after hours. In Miller's mind, that couldn't be a lawyer. That had to be a burglar in a disguise, someone trying to crack a safe or steal proprietary data. Miller didn't consider that I had a key. He didn't consider that I was dressed better than he was. He didn't consider that there might be a completely innocent explanation. He just acted. Do you think officers should be allowed to roam private office buildings without a warrant or cause? Drop your answer below. Officer Miller walked quickly down the hallway toward me, his hand hovering over his belt, his voice booming, "Sir, step away from that door." The command echoed off the marble walls. I turned, genuinely surprised. I saw the CPD uniform, the badge, the aggressive stance. I'd been through this before in my youth, and I see it every day in my case files. I knew exactly how fast this could go wrong. "Good evening, officer," I said, keeping my voice level, my hands visible, the key still in the lock. "How can I help you? You trying to force entry?" Miller's tone wasn't asking. It was accusing. I blinked, confused. "Force entry, no. I'm unlocking my office. I work here." After hours, Miller stepped into my personal space. "That's suspicious. I need to see ID." I felt that familiar weight of exhaustion and frustration settling over my shoulders. "It's inside on my desk. That's why I'm opening the door. I forgot it when I left a minute ago." Miller's eyes narrowed, scanning me up and down. "Don't reach for anything yet." And there it was, the moment when a completely innocent action became criminalized. Me, Marcus Thorne, a licensed attorney, standing at my own office door with my own key, being treated like a suspect because Officer Miller couldn't imagine a man like me belonged in a place like this. "So I can't open the door," I said. my voice steady but edged with the controlled anger I usually reserved for cross-examinations. And I can't prove I work here because my ID is inside. That's a catch-22. I just need cooperation, Miller replied, as if that justified the absurdity. I looked directly at the body camera on his chest. "You're getting it," I said quietly, speaking as the defense attorney I am. That statement should have made Miller pause. It should have made him reconsider, should have triggered some recognition that he might be walking into a lawsuit. But it didn't. Because in Miller's mind, criminals lie. They claim to be lawyers, doctors, business owners. It was a deflection tactic to him. This is where bias becomes dangerous. Officer Miller had already decided what he was looking at. A black man at an office door at night wasn't a professional working late. It was a crime in progress, and no amount of logic was going to change his mind. "I need you to step away from the door and put your hands where I can see them," Miller said, his hand now resting on the grip of his service weapon. My jaw tightened. I'd spent 12 years in courtrooms arguing about unlawful stops, unreasonable searches, Terry stops gone wrong, and now I was the case study. "Officer," I said, projecting my voice clearly, "my name is Marcus Thorne. I am an attorney. This is my office suite 1204. My name is on the placard right next to the door. My bar card is inside on my desk. I have a key because I own this practice. You are stopping me without probable cause." Miller moved closer, invading my space. "I'm investigating suspicious activity." "What suspicious activity?" My voice rose, the frustration breaking through the professional veneer. "I'm unlocking a door with a metal key. That's not suspicious. That's normal functionality." "At this time of night, in an office building, he countered. "Yes," I said emphatically. "Lawyers work late. That's what we do. Look at the door. The sign says, Marcus Thorne, attorney at law. That is me." Miller glanced at the frosted glass sign. Suite 1204 Marcus Thorne. But instead of backing down, instead of apologizing for the misunderstanding, Miller doubled down. His ego was involved now. "I still need to verify your identity." "Then let me open the door so I can show you my ID, I said, my patience hanging by a thread. "No, you're not going inside until I can confirm you have a right to be here." "This is insane," I said, shaking my head in disbelief. "You are detaining me for entering my own office." "Turn around and put your hands behind your back," Miller ordered. "Miller," my eyes widened. "You're arresting me. I'm detaining you pending verification. Verification of what I've told you who I am. I've told you this is my office. I have a key. What more do you need?" Miller reached for his handcuffs. "Turn around." And in that moment, a man who had dedicated his life to the law, had to make a choice. Comply with an unlawful detention and let the system violate my dignity, or resist and risk escalation that could end my life. I chose to comply because I knew exactly what happened to men like me who didn't. Should attorneys or anyone be immune from wrongful stops in their own workplaces? Let me know what you think. I turned slowly, my hands raised. "I am complying under protest," I stated clearly for the microphone on his vest. "This is an unlawful detention. I am an attorney entering my own office. You have no probable cause, no reasonable suspicion, and I am going to file a complaint the moment you release me." Miller pulled my arms behind my back and snapped the handcuffs on. The cold metal bit into my wrists. The indignity burned deeper than the physical pinch. This is what racial profiling looks like when it's backed by state power. A black attorney, in his own building, at his own office with his own key, being shackled because an officer couldn't conceive that he belonged there. A door opened down the hallway. Elena Rodriguez, a tax attorney, who worked 2 suites over, stepped out. She'd heard the raised voices. "Marcus," she called out, looking confused. "What's going on?" I turned my head toward her. "Elena, I'm being arrested for trying to enter my office." Elena walked quickly toward us, her heels clicking on the tile. "Officer, that is Marcus Thorne. He's a defense attorney. That is his office. He works here every day." Miller barely looked at her. "Ma'am, step back. This is police business." "Police business?" Eleanor's voice rose an octave. "He's been in that office for 3 years. I share a conference room with him. This is ridiculous." "Ma'am, I'm not going to ask again. Step back." Elena pulled out her phone and started recording immediately. "I'm calling building security and the Chicago Bar Association. This is harassment." Miller radioed for backup. "Dispatch, this is Unit 4 Alpha. I need another unit at 120 North LaSalle 12th floor. Possible trespassing arrest. Also have an uncooperative witness on scene." Within minutes, a second patrol car arrived. Officer Karen Holloway stepped off the elevator. She was a veteran, maybe 15 years on the force. She'd worked with Miller before, and I could see the fatigue in her eyes when she saw who had called it in. "What's the situation?" Holloway asked. Miller gestured toward me, handcuffed against the wall. "Caught this individual attempting to break into an office. He claims he works here but has no ID." Holloway looked at me, then at the door, then at the sign that clearly read, "Marcus Thorne." She looked back at me. "Miller," she said quietly. "His name is on the door. Could be coincidence, or he could be using a stolen key," Miller argued, grasping at straws. Holloway walked over to Elena, who was still recording. "You know this man?" "Yes," Elena said immediately. "That is Marcus Thorne. He is an attorney. This is his office. He is here almost every night. Officer Miller is making a massive mistake." Holloway turned back to Miller, her voice dropping to a harsh whisper that I could still hear. "Uncuff him. Now." "I was investigating suspicious activity," Miller protested. "You are racially profiling a professional in his own building. Uncuff him before this destroys your career and the department's budget." Miller hesitated, his face flushing red, but the damage was done. The body camera had recorded everything. The witness was filming. The evidence was undeniable. He unlocked the handcuffs. I rubbed my wrists, my jaw clenched, fury radiating from every pore of my body. Holloway stepped forward. "Mr. Thorne, I apologize. This should never have happened. Would you like to file a formal complaint?" I looked at her, then at Miller, then at the camera still recording. "Yes," I said, my voice tight. "I absolutely would. And I will be filing a federal lawsuit. This wasn't an investigation. This was racial profiling, pure and simple." Building security arrived moments later. A supervisor named James, who'd worked the night shift for 6 years. He recognized me immediately. "Mr. Thorne, what the hell is going on?" "I was arrested for entering my own office, James," I said flatly. James looked at Miller with disgust. "This is Marcus Thorne. He's one of our longest-standing tenants. He's here late almost every night. Everyone knows him." Miller said nothing because there was nothing to say. He'd profiled an attorney in his own building, arrested him without cause, and been proven wrong by multiple witnesses. Holloway radioed dispatch. "Cancel that backup. Situation resolved. And flag this incident for supervisor review." Why do some officers see professional success in black individuals as suspicious rather than normal? Comment your thoughts below. The story reached the Illinois State Bar Association by morning. A licensed attorney handcuffed in his own office building while attempting to enter his own suite. The outrage was swift and intense. The Chicago Police Department received the formal complaint by noon. My attorneys, because of course I hired the best in the city, filed a comprehensive civil rights lawsuit within 48 hours. The allegations were devastating: unlawful stop without reasonable suspicion, false arrest without probable cause, racial profiling, violation of constitutional protections, emotional distress, and reputational harm. The body camera footage told the entire story. Me identifying myself, me explaining I worked there, me pointing to my name on the door, and Miller arresting me anyway. The city's attorneys reviewed the case and arrived at a grim conclusion within a week. This was indefensible. The evidence was overwhelming. Settlement negotiations began immediately. The city settled 8 months later. $3,200,000 paid to me, Marcus Thorne, funded by taxpayers who had to bear the cost of one officer's bias. Officer Bradley Miller was terminated 10 weeks after the incident. The termination letter was final and unambiguous. Officer Miller engaged in racial profiling and unlawful arrest. His name was entered into the National Decertification Index. He would never work in law enforcement again. Not in Illinois, not anywhere. He attempted to appeal through the police union, but the union withdrew support once the Bar Association submitted a formal complaint and the footage went viral. Miller issued a brief statement through an attorney. "I made an error in judgment based on incomplete information. It wasn't enough. It would never be enough." The department faced intense scrutiny. How had Miller, with 13 prior complaints, remained on patrol? Why had supervisors ignored the pattern? Internal Affairs launched a comprehensive review. What they found was systemic negligence. Complaints filed, but not investigated. Training requirements completed on paper, but not internalized. Supervisors pressured to keep officers on the street. Reforms were announced within 6 months. Mandatory de-escalation training, real-time Bodycam review for all commercial building stops, and a new oversight committee. I became an advocate, though I never wanted that role. I testified before the city council. I spoke at community forums. My message was consistent. I had every advantage. I said during one testimony, "I am a criminal defense attorney. I know my rights. I have resources. I have colleagues like Elena, and I still got handcuffed in my own building for the crime of existing while black after business hours." What happens to people who don't have those advantages? What happens to the janitors, the delivery drivers, the people who work night shifts and look suspicious? To officers trained to see my skin color as a threat, I paused, fighting back tears. I defend people every day who've been stopped, searched, arrested without cause. I fight against this exact abuse, and then I lived it. I donated a significant portion of my settlement to the NAACP Legal Defense Fund and started a scholarship for minority law students. But the anger remained. The memory of being handcuffed while Elena recorded and James vouched for me. And none of it mattered, because Miller had already decided I was a criminal. Should officers face personal financial liability for racial profiling cases? Let me know in the comments. This wasn't just a bad stop. This was a window into how bias operates when combined with authority. Officer Miller didn't see an attorney working late. He saw a stereotype. His bias was so ingrained that he ignored the name on the door, the key in the lock, the suit, the calm explanation. This is what systemic racism looks like when it's quiet and procedural. No slurs, just the assumption that I didn't belong. It reinforces the message that success and education don't protect you from being seen as a suspect. It tells black professionals that they'll always have to prove they belong, even in their own offices. Bradley Miller's career is over. That's accountability. The city paid $3.2 million. That's justice financially. But money doesn't undo the trauma. It doesn't erase the humiliation. The real question is, what changes now? Does the department finally take complaints seriously before they become number 14? Do they finally accept that proactive policing can't mean assuming criminality based on race? Because if we don't fix the system that put Bradley Miller in that hallway, if we don't address the bias that taught him to see a black attorney as a burglar, then we're just waiting for the next officer, the next victim. Comment if this should be national law. Any officer who arrests someone at their own workplace, proven by documentation, equals immediate decertification. And if you believe stories like this need to be told, if you think accountability matters, then hit that subscribe button, because we're going to keep exposing these patterns. We're going to keep demanding better. We're going to keep fighting for the professionals who deserve to work late without being treated like criminals. This isn't just about me or one bad officer. It's about the system we are willing to accept. This story touches on critical themes regarding civil rights implicit bias and the importance of due process in law enforcement interactions. While the narrative is presented in the first person to provide a visceral personal perspective on the impact of racial profiling, please note that this is a retelling based on true events. The names, ages, specific locations, and identifying details have been changed to protect the privacy of the real individuals involved and to serve a broader educational purpose. The goal of sharing this story is to educate the public on Fourth Amendment rights, the reality of systemic bias, and the mechanisms of accountability within the justice system. It is not intended to target or harm any specific individual, but rather to foster understanding and encourage dialogue about how we can create a more just and equitable society for everyone. By understanding these incidents, we can better advocate for necessary reforms and ensure that professional respect and constitutional rights are afforded to all citizens regardless of their background or appearance.